Thanks everyone for inviting me here today. Thanks for turning up as well. It's great to see a really full room at this stage of the afternoon. So yeah, I'm just going to talk quite generally. I'm not going to get into hopefully too many specifics. A lot of the other talks today are going to be covering specifics about particular types of writing. A lot of what I want to talk about today is really the kind of approach to writing, what you need to be thinking about as you're writing. Because you're going to be doing a lot of writing. Pretty much everything that you're going to need to be doing as your career progresses is going to involve some type of writing or another, so you better get good at it. So what we're going to be looking at, first question, why are you writing? What is it? Why are you writing it? I'm going to provide a few tips for grants, project updates, very important, maybe applying for a new role. I'll talk about that a bit more tomorrow. But also writing papers. I'm not going to go into the level of detail that Federico did, but again, just some more thoughts on that. And also to kind of raise your public profile, to demonstrate to other people that that you exist, how to actually write for the web and public consumption as well. So really covering the whole gamut, the whole spectrum of sort of professional writing that you're going to be needing to do throughout your career, whether it's in academia or in industry. So first question, why are you going to be writing? Not all of the writing is the same. That sounds quite obvious, but I see a lot of CVs that do look like a PhD thesis. There's a lot of scientific papers that do look like the thesis, not so many that look like an application letter or a CV. So it's really important to think, what is it that you're trying to write? And touching on something that kind of has been mentioned a bit, but this is really key. Who are you writing for? Yeah, who's the audience? Who's going to be reading it? And then on the basis of that, with that in mind, what do you want them to do as a result of what you've written? Yeah, you're actually writing for a purpose. You want to achieve something. And that purpose, why are you writing? Is it to inform people, like in a scientific paper? Is it to influence, if you're writing a grant proposal, a project proposal? Is it to educate? Again, if you're looking for kind of writing for the public or just for entertainment, have you got something interesting that people might want to read about? So before you even sit down in front of your computer, before you kind of get your notepad out, really spend time thinking about why you're writing it. What is it that you're trying to achieve? That's a really good starting point, and spend time doing that. So I'm hopefully not going to, a lot of this has been covered, but I'm just going to go over it again. This is really key. When you're writing a grant proposal, your science isn't going to be enough, yeah? That's going to be the basis of it. It could be the best science in the world. If you're not able to communicate that, if you're not showing why it's the best science in the world, it's not going to get anywhere. If you've got a good idea, you may well have a good idea, but are you going to sell that idea? Believing something is interesting isn't the same as believing that it's relevant to the funder. So can you take your interesting, novel, exciting proposal and actually communicate your passion, your excitement to the person that's reading it? And you're not going to be doing that by writing it in the same way that you write your PhD thesis. You might need to construct the relevance. That doesn't mean you kind of look at the grant proposal and try and work out, can I squeeze it in there? You've actually got to build a narrative around your research to kind of make it relevant to the person that's going to be reading it. It's also not what you've done in the past. So part of my job is to help people with career and job applications. I see grant research proposals as part of that quite often. If people are applying to a university, they write a research proposal to kind of support their application. Quite often, a lot of that is taken up with what they've done in the past. They're actually just going over what's in the thesis. It's the kind of safe ground. You know all about it. You know how to explain it. You've got to go beyond that. You've got to start to establish your independence. What's new? What are you going to be doing next? Also think about the specifics of what's going in. So there may be non-specialists that are going to be repeating it, really kind of repeating that point that Maria made, yeah? Someone outside of your area of expertise might be reading it. Can you take enough of a step back to actually understand how to communicate your ideas to that sort of non-specialist? Again, as Maria mentioned, track record of delivery, yeah, papers, other projects, grants. So not just have you got a stellar publication record, have you got a track record of winning any sort of grant, have you got a track record of managing a research group, mentoring people, training people. They're looking for all-round expertise, being able to deliver on that project, not just good scientists. really key point at the others. Get others to read it. Yeah, I know it's ultra competitive. I know you're kind of competing against other scientists to get funding, but the more people that you can get to read your application before it goes off, the more likely it is to be successful. They can give you feedback. They can kind of say, well, actually, I didn't understand that bit. I'm not a specialist. You need to rewrite that. So get as many people to read it as you can. Really good idea is to actually do it within peers, within your research group. Are there people within your university or within your institution that have won grants? Yeah? Have you asked them to read it? Have you asked them to give feedback? From their experience, from their expertise, they know how they succeeded in winning a grant. What can they teach you to help you with your application? There's a set of rules, or a set of questions to ask yourself. Hillmeyer was an engineer, but he proposed this set of questions for anyone proposing a research project or product development that you should be able to answer. I'll put it up there because it really kind of reinforces the things that you've got to be thinking about when you're writing a grant proposal. A lot of it was covered by Maria early on, but actually let's break it down a little bit more. Why? What is it that you're trying to do? Can you articulate your objectives with no jargon at all? Can you make it really clear what you're trying to do? Why now? So how's it done today? What's the state of the art? What are the limits? Why is it important to do it now? The novelty, very important, Maria mentioned. You know, what's your leap of imagination? What's your leap of innovation? What's new in the approach that you're going to do? And why do you think it's going to be successful? Can you convince the person reading it why it will be successful? What is it going to achieve? You know, why are you doing it? What's the output? What's the kind of end goal of it? Who cares? That's down there really to kind of say, well, actually, why you know, who else cares apart from you? Can you communicate why that's important? What difference will it make? You know, what are the risks and the payoffs? So again, this is reiterating some of what Maria was talking about, but it's really important that you're really clear in your research proposal. Resources, what do you need to get it done? How much is it going to cost? How long is it going to take? Have you really thought through that? Part of your sort of stretch as you launch your career as an independent researcher is to actually have a feel for that, to be able to manage that project. What do I need to do to make that project happen? What are the resources I need? Is it time? Is it space in a lab? Is it access to a particular bit of equipment? How much is all that going to cost? How long is it going to take? And also being able to identify the milestones. So they're your kind of exams. Are you on course to deliver what the project's expected to deliver? Do you know, are you hitting those milestones? That's good for you. It's also good for the person that's actually running it to kind of keep an eye on you, keep track on it. That's really important to kind of have a clear idea how you'll know your project is being successful. This is something that was touched on, but I'm going to put it here because it's really important. Yeah, when you're actually doing your science, when you're putting your grant proposal together, being a good scientist is not enough. Yeah, this is the changing role of the principal investigator. I would argue this is becoming more and more important as you try and establish your independence as a researcher. So if you go through, and these are all the things that you need to do to be a good PI. At the top, obviously, I'll put scientist. That's quite important, but that's actually one out of, 6, 12, 11 other things that you need to be good at. So one of those sessions we were talking about earlier, what else are you doing to develop the skills to make you successful as a researcher? And I would argue that this isn't just relevant for if you're a principal investigator, but actually if you're going out into industry, away from the academic world, you need to be developing these skills as well. They're all important. So research strategist, do you have a clear vision of where your research is going to go, how it's going to get there? Can you manage that project? Can you demonstrate a track record of being able to do that? Can you lead a team? You might have PhD students, you might have undergraduates working for you. What's involved in that process? Knowledge broker is an interesting one. Can you actually share knowledge between yourself and other stakeholders? That might be collaborators, it might be industrial partners, it might be other people that want to kind of take what you've learned and actually use it and apply it. Admin, everyone hates admin, but if you're going to be doing a research proposal, if you're going to be running a project, probably about a third of your time is going to be spent doing that. Sorry folks. Can you manage your relationship with stakeholders? That could be the funding body, it could be your host institution. Can you manage that relationship to make sure they want to keep you there, that they don't want to bring someone else into your lab? You've got to manage that relationship and make sure that they're up to date with what's going on. Can you promote your project? Can you show the impact of what you're doing? Can you get other people excited about it? Managing the resources, very important as well. Can you get a feel for, okay, we're running short of this, we need to get some more of that, where can we get it from? Be it time, money, access to other equipment, and you'll also be a supervisor and mentor, hopefully. So again, that's really important. You're going to be bringing through the team that you're going to be working with. So as you're planning your career, as you're kind of applying for grants, are you making sure in your career, in your head, that you're developing these other skills as well as just the science? Because that's what you're going to need to be doing to win grants and be successful. Project updates, really boring. Got to write a report to say, oh, the project's going really well, we've hit all our milestones. Probably more important in industry than academia, but again, a lot of funding bodies want to know how you're getting on. So when you're writing these, think about what does the reader need to know, yeah? Not just be really clear. Are you achieving the project aims? Have they changed since the project started? So I put agile up there. Projects have a tendency to creep. Yeah, they tend to start off doing one thing. If you're not really keeping the reins really firm, they can drift off in different directions. That's a whole new project methodology now called agile, but you probably don't want to be doing that for a scientific project. Are you hitting your key milestones? Yeah. If you're not, why not? Do you know what they are? Are you reporting on the progress today? What are the issues? Are there bottlenecks? Are there problems? What are you going to do about those? Do you need extra resources to complete the project? So that's really the kind of information that maybe the senior leadership team need. That's maybe the information that your head of research at your university needs to make sure that you're doing what they need you to be doing. I'm getting back into more my comfort zone now. Applying for a new role, really important. CVs, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, so I want you all to come and see me again tomorrow. So be really clear that what country you're going to be applying for jobs in, the format of your CV might be very different. So a CV in the UK isn't the same as a resume in America maybe. It's not the same as a Lebenslauf in Germany. If you want a job in those countries, the onus is very much on you to find out how those differences apply. How are you going to take the information that you have, put it into the format that's relevant for the country that you want to apply into. So your CV is what experience you have, what skills you have, but there's a caveat there that are relevant to the role that you're applying for, okay? It's not a list of everything you've done. That's one of the questions that was mentioned earlier on in the session earlier. You don't have to put everything on there. Put the stuff that's relevant. That's all that the reader cares about. And so that's really kind of getting back to the point where a lot of writing, are you thinking about it from the reader's point of view? Are you providing the information that that reader needs to do whatever it is that you want them to do? Okay, so it's not your biography, it's not a record of everything you've ever done, every technique you've learned, every course you've been on. The reader doesn't really care about that, sorry folks. They want to know you've got what they're looking for. It's a document to get you an interview. That's really the kind of key take-home message for your CV. Is it demonstrating what the reader needs to get you a job, to get you to interview? Cover letter, again at the round table earlier, we talked a little bit more about this. For me, it's really why. So why you want the job, why you want to work for that particular organisation, why you're going to make a success of it. That's where you bring in the skills and experience that's on the CV. Try and make it emotional. Try and kind of reach out to the person reading it and actually try and make a connection. Try and get them to envisage you being in that role. Again, that's a really kind of important first step to get an interview. If you're going for academic roles, you might have to do a research proposal. So going back to that role of the PI, what is your vision? Do you have a really clear view of the direction that you want your research to go? That's really crucial to establishing your independence as a researcher. Don't get bogged down in the detail. That's kind of probably the thing that most people do. You're so caught up in what you're writing about, you know so much about it, you want to demonstrate all that on the research proposal, you want to get it all down, show off how much you know. That's not going to kind of be really what the person reading it is looking for. They can talk about that interview or once you're in the position. It's not that different from a grant proposal, but it is a lot shorter, yeah? So probably maybe up to kind of, I'd say maybe 3 to 5 pages, the maximum. If you go beyond that, you're going to lose interest of the person reading it. You might also be asked for something like a teaching philosophy or a teaching statement. That's really kind of, if you're going for a role that involves teaching or lecturing at an academic institution, can you be specific about what your teaching philosophy is? And it's not just, oh, I love working with students, it's really great to be important and engage with them and get them fun and excited, yeah? You've got to be concrete examples about how you do all those things. So did you launch a particular way of teaching? Did you run a new tutorial group? Did you bring in new technology into teaching and lecturing? Can you give concrete examples of how you've done things? It says a range of techniques and examples. It's not emotional, it's not, oh, it's really important to me that I kind of teach the next generation. It may be, but they don't actually want to read that in your teaching philosophy. That's why you're applying for the job. You can talk about that in an interview, but I'd argue you probably don't. Don't make it emotional at this stage. Demonstrate that you are credible. Demonstrate that you can come to that university, hit the ground running, and be a really valuable member of their teaching staff. Writing papers, oh my word. I've kind of had some of the, I'm not going to go through this in a huge amount of detail because obviously Federico said everything there is ever that you need to know. Where, what and how to publish, I think that's really important. Do you have a really clear idea of that? Which journal? Yeah? How do you decide what journal it is? Don't just look at the impact factor, but also look at the scope of the journal. So is it in the specific area that you want to publish in? Is it a journal that you know really well, that you read really well? Papers format, that sounds pretty obvious. They do provide a lot of information there about how to do that. Make sure you read it, okay? Don't just cut and lift it from your dissertation. Are you adhering to the submission guidelines or word limits? Really important. Yeah, so really kind of make sure that you kind of know that journal inside out. You know what their remit is, what their aims are, what their editorial policy is. They make it all easy for you. They publish it online if you look for it. Have you done that? Federico covered the abstract much better than I did. I'm not going to go into that, but it's really important that you nail it. Try not to submit papers to the journals at the same time. That could be really annoying for the editor. They'll be asking you about that. The one I like at the bottom, the one I like best is the one at the bottom. Just because it's interesting to you doesn't mean it's going to be relevant to the journal or to anyone else that's going to be reading it. Yeah? You live in that world, you do it every day, you might find it the most interesting thing in the world. Are other people going to be doing that? Really important to think about that. There's a quote actually from a completely different discipline up there, sociology. I read that and it was really good, so that's why I put it up there. I just put in a plug for the RSC at this point as well. We have a lot of information. If you do want to submit to an RSC journal, we have journals that can help with a lot of information about how to submit to our journals. I'm going to move through quickly because we are running out of time, we're a bit ahead. Finish off on this one. This is something we haven't talked about today so far. Writing for web and public consumption. More and more of you have probably been asked to do this, or more of you want to do this. Even here, it's more important than ever that you actually think about who's going to be reading it. Yeah, it's quite often the hardest thing to write. The inverted pyramid is a tool that you can use for writing these sort of articles. You basically take the inclusion, the conclusion, the essential information first. That's the hook to make the person read the rest of it. But also be thinking about what you want to write about. Why do you want to be writing about that? Yeah, are you enthusiastic? Are you passionate about it? Be really clear that you can tell a story about it. The vocabulary is even more important for this type of writing than for anything else. So make sure that if you need help with it, again, get other people to read it before you publish it. Really spend a lot of time thinking about the words that you're going to be using rather than just getting on and writing it. There's lots of help and support available for your writing. If you're going for academic writing or PhD thesis writing, there's a guy called Hugh, he's well worth following. If you're writing for grants, I'm just going to put a plug in for an RSC conference later on this year. I'll tell you a bit more about that in a moment. There's information about applying for new roles. If you're an RSC member, you can get help from myself and my colleagues. We make kind of a lot more help available kind of one-to-one as well. Stuff on writing for the web, so look at the Association of British Science Writers. There's an American version as well if you want to get into that seriously. You know, learn from it, find out what other people, and that's the information about RSC author information on there as well. So don't think you have to sit down in front of the computer and do it all on your own. There's a lot of help and support available for you out there. So the Joliot-Curie conference, that's happening later on this year in Nottingham. The reason I put it up is because it's really relevant to the career stage that a lot of you guys are going to be at. Really, this is kind of it's a conference that we run to really help people to establish their independent research career. What we do is we get a load of researchers together, all chemistry related. They have the chance to submit a one-page research proposal, and that then gets reviewed amongst peers using the criteria that a funding body might use. So it's well worth coming along to kind of get a feeling for how your writing, how your research proposal might be reviewed against other people. It's only £25. We do have travel grants available as well for you to come along to as well. Some great speakers, Saiful Islam, Robert Parker from the RSC is going to be there, our new President-elect Tom Welton. So it's a really good opportunity for you to come along, meet other early career researchers, really benefit from some of this expertise. Thanks very much for listening. Questions are going to be at the end, I believe, yeah. So do get in touch if you want to know any more about any of the things that I've been talking about so far today. Thank you very much.